Mommy fell down. Please help my mommy. Asher freezes in his penthouse, hearing a child's panic echo through the cold emptiness of his billionaire life. The call ends abruptly. Asher is left staring at his phone, not knowing the little girl crying for help is his daughter. The mysterious emergency call at midnight, from a child he has never met. What do you do when a stranger's child clings to you for help, and destiny ties your lives together? Asher can't shake the voice. He takes action, believing he might be the only person who can save them. Stay with me, because what happens next will change 3 lives forever. Before we dive deeper, please like this video, leave a comment to help more people find this story, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep powerful stories like this alive. Welcome back, family. And to our new listeners, welcome to Mr. Michael Stories, where real-life emotions shape unforgettable journeys. The December evening had started like any other peaceful night in Stella's small town home, on the quiet edge of Greenwood. The soft hum of the heater filled the living room, pushing warm air through the space as Stella wiped chocolate from little Nia's cheek. The sweet smell of freshly baked cookies drifted around them, blending with the comforting aroma of the sweet potato pie cooling on the counter. It was the kind of night that wrapped around you like a warm blanket, gentle, simple, and familiar. Stella, balancing love and exhaustion the way she always did, let out a soft sigh as she stood up from the couch. Nia giggled beside her, tugging on her pajama shirt with her tiny chocolate-stained fingers. "Mommy, can we watch the one with the singing raccoon again?" Nia asked, eyes bright with excitement. "We already watched that one twice today," Stella said with a tired smile. "But we'll see. Let me put these cookies away first, okay?" Nia nodded happily and began dancing around the couch. Her curls bounced with every tiny hop. Stella stepped into the kitchen, her ankles still a little sore from rushing around earlier in the day. She wasn't used to sitting still, between work at the clinic, church activities, and raising Nia alone. Stillness felt foreign. But tonight, she wanted slow. She wanted soft. She wanted this quiet moment with her daughter. She reached for the cooling rack. But as she turned, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over her. Hot, heavy, blinding. It hit her so fast, she didn't have time to brace herself. Her knees buckled. Her vision blurred. And before she could steady her hand on the counter, she fell, hard. Her body hit the floor with a thud that echoed through the townhome. Moments later, Nia, who had been twirling near the doorway, froze mid-step. "Mommy." Stella tried to push herself up, but pain shot through her ankle like fire. She winced, attempting a reassuring smile she didn't feel. "I'm okay, baby. Just give Mommy a second." But her words were slurred, her breathing unsteady. To a 5-year-old, nothing about this looked okay. Nia's lip began trembling. Her small hands shook as she took a step forward. "Mommy, get up," she whispered, voice cracking. Stella reached out, her fingers trembling. "Sweetheart, I just need—" But before she could explain, a tear slid down Nia's cheek. Panic swallowed the little girl whole. She spun around, racing for the living room where her mother's phone sat on the couch. Nia grabbed it with both hands, her tiny fingers fumbling across the screen. She didn't know what she was dialing. She just pressed again, pressed until the phone began to ring. Across town, in a penthouse high above the sleeping city, Asher sat alone with the glow of his laptop lighting his face. Lines of code, graphs, and figures filled the screen. His jaw was tight, his hair slightly disheveled after nearly 15 hours of back-to-back meetings. The life of a billionaire CEO looked glamorous from the outside, but tonight, he felt the weight of every responsibility. The silence of his penthouse was suffocating, his world all steel, glass, and loneliness. No laughter, no warmth, nothing that breathed life into him. Then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, he almost ignored it. Then it buzzed again, the ring cutting sharply through the stillness of the room. "Who's calling me at this hour?" Asher muttered. But something in his gut urged him to answer. He swiped the screen. "Hello?" A tiny, trembling voice spilled through the line. "Help, Mommy fell down. Please help Mommy." Asher froze. Every cell in his body went rigid. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't spam. This was a child, crying, desperate, terrified. Hey, sweetheart," he said gently, rising from his chair as instinct kicked in. "It's okay, I'm here. Tell me what happened." Her small sobs crackled through the phone. "Mommy, she won't get up. She won't get up." Asher grabbed his jacket with one hand, the phone pressed to his ear with the other. His heart pounded loudly in his chest as he paced toward his elevator. "Okay, sweetheart, listen to me," he said, voice steady even though his pulse raced. "Can you tell me your name?" Nia. The name landed inside him like a stone dropped into a silent lake. Nia. He didn't know why that name hit him so hard. He had never met a Nia. He had no daughter, no nieces, no siblings with kids. And yet, "Nia," he repeated softly, "are you hurt? Is Mommy talking?" "She's hurt. She won't stand up. Please help her." Asher swallowed hard. He'd faced hostile investors without blinking, negotiated million-dollar deals under pressure, and stood at the top of boardrooms with absolute control, but the fear in this child's voice shook him more deeply than anything he'd experienced in years. "Nia, do you know where you live?" he asked carefully. There was silence, then soft whimpering. I don't know." Asher's chest tightened. He heard Stella's faint groan in the background. The panic in Nia's breathing grew. "Okay, sweetheart," he whispered. "Look at the phone. Press 9, then 1, then 1. Nia repeated the numbers back, her voice shaking. "I did it," she said. "Now someone's talking." Asher exhaled with relief. "Good job. Keep talking to them. Tell them everything." But before he could say anything else, the line cut. Silence. The call ended. Asher stared at his phone screen as it went black. His own reflection stared back at him, wide-eyed, shaken, no longer composed. No, come on," he whispered, tapping the screen, trying to reconnect. Nothing. The call was gone. The little girl was gone. He felt a surge of helplessness he didn't recognize. He slammed his hand against the counter, breathing hard. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not letting anything happen to you," he whispered to himself, gripping his phone like a lifeline. Somewhere in a small home across town, a little girl had reached for help, and reached him. A complete stranger, or so he believed, unaware that the child who cried his name was his. The moment the call cut, Asher felt something unfamiliar grip his chest, raw, unfiltered fear. It wasn't the kind he felt during a failing merger or a crashing stock line. This was deeper, personal, the kind of fear a man feels when a voice he was never meant to hear suddenly matters more than his own heartbeat. Think, he muttered, pacing across the penthouse. The city lights glittered far beneath him, but his mind was fixed only on Nia's trembling voice echoing in his ear. He replayed every second of the call, hoping to catch something he'd missed. A background noise, a clue, anything. He grabbed his phone, opened the call log, and tapped the number. Unknown, random, untraceable at surface level. But he was a man who built a tech empire from scratch. He didn't accept dead ends, not in business, not in life, and certainly not when a child's plea had shaken him to the core. He opened his laptop and called his assistant. Leo answered groggily. "Boss, everything okay?" "No," Asher said sharply. "I need you to run a trace on a number that just called me. Highest priority. At this hour?" "Leo," Asher said slowly, "a child called me. She said her mother fell and couldn't get up. Then the call dropped. I don't know where she is." The silence that followed was short, but heavy. "I'm on it," Leo replied immediately. Asher sent the number, pacing again. His reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows looked nothing like the man who had sat calmly writing reports moments earlier. His jaw was tight, his hair disheveled from running his hand through it, and he couldn't keep still. Minutes passed. Long, suffocating minutes. Then Leo texted. "Tracing. Unstable signal. Give me 2 more minutes." Asher exhaled, running a hand across his forehead. He felt helpless, and he hated that feeling more than anything. While he waited, his mind shifted to the moment the call cut, the silence. The ringing emptiness after Nia's terrified breath vanished. He replayed her tiny voice again. "Help Mommy. Please help Mommy." The words echoed like a haunting refrain. Finally, Leo called back. "Boss, I got something." The call bounced between local towers. "It's not exact, but I narrowed it to a residential area near Greenwood." "Greenwood?" Asher repeated. "It's a modest neighborhood. The signal's strongest around Elm Street. Asher grabbed his car keys. Send me the coordinates. You're going there? Now? It's midnight. Yes. Someone needs help. Leo didn't argue. Coordinates sent. Asher ended the call, shoved his laptop into a bag, and rushed into the private elevator. His car, a sleek sedan with custom systems, was waiting in the private garage. As the engine hummed to life, he sped through the quiet city streets, tires gripping the road with determined precision. He didn't know who Stella was. He didn't know where she lived, or how serious her injury was. But one thing he did know, he couldn't ignore this, not anymore. Meanwhile, across town, Stella leaned against the back seat of Lily's car as they sped toward the hospital. Her ankle continued throbbing with each bump in the road. Nia sat beside her, small fingers gripping her mother's wrist. "Mommy, are you gonna stay with me?" Nia whispered. Stella stroked her daughter's cheek. "Always, baby. Mommy just hurt her ankle. I'm okay." But the truth was, she wasn't fully okay. She was shaken. Not by the fall, by the call. She remembered hearing faint words while drifting in and out of consciousness, Nia speaking desperately to someone who wasn't her. A man's voice. Confused, she leaned her head back. "Lily, did Nia tell you anything about a phone call?" Lily frowned. "She said she called someone before dialing 911. I didn't understand what she meant. She was panicking." Stella's brows knitted together. She said a man answered. Lily shrugged. Kids get confused when they're scared. Maybe she imagined it, but Stella wasn't convinced. Because in those hazy, dizzy moments when she lay on the kitchen floor, she remembered hearing a voice faintly calling to Nia. "Sweetheart, breathe, tell me your name." Was that real? Or was her memory distorted from the fall? By the time they reached the ER, Stella's thoughts were tangled in worry. The nurses moved quickly, bringing a wheelchair, helping her inside. Nia clung to her mother's side. "Don't let go," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," Stella promised. Inside the examination room, the bright fluorescent lights made everything feel more intense. The doctor examined her ankle, ordered x-rays, and wrapped it carefully. "Just a sprain," he said kindly. "You'll need to stay off it for a while." Stella nodded, but her mind wasn't on the injury. It was on Nia, on the call, on the voice she wasn't sure she imagined. Later, when they returned to Lily's car, Stella settled in gingerly. Her phone vibrated. A message. Unknown number. Heart racing slightly, she opened it. "We traced the number. Address looks like 14 Elm Street, Greenwood." Stella froze. Her breath caught. What does that mean?" she whispered to herself. She hadn't told anyone, except Lily, that Nia made a random call. She hadn't shared her address. She hadn't mentioned anything to anyone. So how did someone know where she lived? Confusion washed over her like cold water. Was someone watching them? Why would anyone trace their call? Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't open it. Instead, she looked out the window, mind racing. "I just want to go home," she whispered, gripping Nia's tiny hand. As Stella returned to her house, limping, tired, and emotionally drained, Asher reached the outskirts of Greenwood. He slowed his car, scanning house numbers illuminated by porch lights and mailboxes. 14 Elm Street. That's what Leo traced the signal to. Asher's car rolled to a stop on the quiet street. The neighborhood was calm, houses modest but well kept. He looked at the dark windows, wondering which one belonged to the little girl who had clung to him with her voice. "Are you safe?" he whispered. He didn't know her mother yet. He didn't know anything about them, but he knew this. He wasn't leaving until he confirmed that Nia's call wasn't a cry into the void. He wasn't walking away from the first moment he'd felt needed in years. Back inside the house, Stella tucked Nia into bed, brushing curls from her forehead. After the fear earlier, Nia was finally settling down. "Mommy," Nia whispered, eyes half closed. Was that man a good man? Stella froze. She knelt beside the bed. "What man, baby?" "The man who talked to me when you fell," Nia murmured sleepily. "He told me to breathe." Stella's stomach tightened. So it was real. There was a man. Someone did speak to Nia. Her pulse quickened with unease. She turned off the light, her mind spiraling. Who was he? Why was he on the other end of the random call? Why did he feel familiar somehow, though she couldn't explain why? As she lowered herself into bed, her phone buzzed again with the same strange number. She didn't open it. She simply whispered to herself, "Please, just let tonight end." She had no idea that the stranger who answered her daughter's desperate call was already on her street, was already searching for her, was about to knock on her door at sunrise, and would change her life forever. The drive into Greenwood stretched longer than Asher expected. The city's glass towers dissolved behind him, replaced by quiet roads lined with bare winter trees. Street lamps cast soft circles of light onto the pavement as he turned slowly into the neighborhood Leo had traced. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel. He replayed that fragile voice in his mind. "Help, Mommy. Please help, Mommy." That plea cut through him each time it echoed. He had no clear plan, only the raw instinct that he needed to make sure Nia and her mother were safe. He slowed his SUV as he approached Elm Street. The neighborhood was modest, peaceful, and dim under the early hours of morning. Most houses were dark. A few porch lights flickered dimly. Christmas decorations blinked lazily across fences. He stopped the engine. The silence around him was thick. He lowered his window and listened, hoping to hear something. A cry. A voice. A clue. Nothing. Just the stillness of a sleeping town. He checked the address, 14 Elm Street. He stared at the house. White siding. Warm porch light glowing faintly. Curtains. Drawn. He didn't know the people inside. Yet, he could feel that something had happened there. He felt it deep in his chest. His hand rested on the car door handle. He considered stepping out, but at this hour, what would he even say? "Hi, I think your daughter dialed me by accident." It sounded absurd, and yet the feeling gnawing at him wouldn't let go. "You're okay," he whispered, as if speaking to Nia through the darkness. "You're okay. You have to be." He stayed there for nearly 10 minutes, just watching the house, waiting for movement, a shadow, a sign that the family inside was fine. But he didn't see her. He didn't see Stella limp into the house hours earlier. He didn't see Nia clinging to her mother after a night of fear. He was close, so close, but he didn't know it yet. Eventually, he took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "If you need me, I'll find you." Then he drove a few streets over, parking under a tree where he could think. He didn't want to leave, not yet. He leaned back in his seat, exhaustion seeping into him. He didn't fall asleep, but the hours drifted by as he sat in the quiet car, waiting for dawn. Inside the townhome, Stella sat at the edge of her bed, ankle propped, on a pillow as the early morning light crept through her blinds. She had barely slept. Her mind was a whirlwind of worry. Her phone sat beside her on the nightstand. The message still glowed on the screen. "We traced the number. Address looks like 14 Elm Street, Greenwood." A chill ran through her each time she looked at it. It wasn't from a friend. Not from the hospital. Not from anyone she recognized. She hadn't replied. She didn't dare. "Mommy," a small voice whispered. Stella turned. Nia stood at the doorway in her fuzzy socks and pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Good morning, baby," Stella said softly, opening her arms. Nia climbed onto the bed, curling into her mother's side. "Is your foot better?" "A little," Stella smiled. "Thank you for asking." Nia played with the corner of the blanket for a moment, then whispered, "Mommy, is the man coming back?" Stella's breath caught. "What man?" "The man who helped me when you fell. I talked to him. He told me to breathe and that everything would be okay." Stella swallowed. "So, you really talked to him," she murmured. "It wasn't just in your imagination." Nia nodded, eyes wide with innocence. "I was scared, but he talked to me nice," Nia whispered. "He sounded worried." Stella brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. She didn't know what to make of any of this. Why had her daughter's random call reached a stranger who cared? Why had that stranger somehow traced her address? Why did it feel like more was happening beneath the surface? She didn't have the answers, but her unease stayed with her. The neighborhood was silent when the first ray of sunrise peeked above the rooftops. Asher stretched in the driver's seat, rubbing the back of his neck. His eyes were heavy, but his resolve was stronger. He checked the address once more. 14 Elm Street. He stepped out of the car. Cold morning air hit him instantly, crisp and biting. He slipped his hands into his jacket pockets and started walking toward the house he'd studied all night. Each step echoed with purpose. He climbed the short porch steps, his heartbeat loud in his ears. What if he was wrong? What if Nia didn't live here? What if no one needed him? But then he pictured her terrified breathing, her trembling voice. That memory alone pushed him to lift his knuckles. He knocked. 3 steady knocks. Inside the house, Stella limped toward the door, leaning on the wall for balance. She wondered if it was Lily, or the neighbor checking on her, or a package delivery. But when she opened the door, her breath left her body. A tall man stood on her porch, broad shoulders, neatly cut hair, expensive winter coat. He looked out of place in her small neighborhood, yet strangely familiar. His eyes softened with recognition. "Miss Stella Harris?" he asked gently. Her heart dropped into her stomach. "Yes," she whispered cautiously. "I'm Stella. Who are you?" He offered a small, almost nervous smile. "My name is Asher Brennan. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. "I'm the man your daughter spoke to last night." Stella froze. Her fingers tightened around the doorknob. Nia peeked from behind her mother's legs, her eyes widening as she saw the man whose voice she remembered in her panic. Asher's gaze softened even more when he saw her. "Hi, Nia." Nia hid slightly, shy but curious. Stella felt her pulse pounding in her ears. The world suddenly felt too small, too bright, too loud. How did you find us?" she whispered. Asher looked apologetic. "I traced the call. I know that sounds strange, but I couldn't ignore the sound of a child asking for help." Stella blinked rapidly, struggling to process everything. "You traced the call? But why?" Asher swallowed, his jaw tightening with emotion he didn't fully understand yet. "Because, when she said her name..." He paused, his eyes flickering between mother and daughter. "Something told me I needed to find both of you." The air felt charged between them, heavy with confusion, fear, and something deeper neither of them could name yet. Stella didn't know what to say. Her heart thudded painfully, and her legs felt weak beneath her. This man, this stranger, the one who guided her daughter through fear, was standing on her porch at sunrise. And the world she knew, the world she had built alone, was about to change forever. The morning light spilled softly across Stella's porch, painting pale gold streaks over the wooden boards beneath her bare feet. She stood frozen at the threshold, gripping the doorframe for balance. Her ankle throbbed faintly under the brace, but she barely felt it. Her mind was too overwhelmed, too stunned by the man standing before her in the crisp winter morning breeze. Asher Brennan, the man whose voice steadied her daughter during the most frightening moment of her young life. The man who somehow traced their address. The man who now stood staring at her with an expression that carried familiarity she couldn't yet explain. Nia peeked cautiously from behind Stella's legs. Her small fingers clutched her mother's pajama hem as she gazed up at Asher with the innocent curiosity only a child could possess. "Mommy, that's him," she whispered. Stella swallowed hard, her throat tightening. "Asher, why are you here? I don't understand." Asher exhaled, stepping back a little, sensing her fear. His voice grew gentle. "I didn't mean to scare you. I know this is strange, unexpected." He rubbed the back of his neck, choosing his next words carefully. "But I know, we've met before." Stella blinked rapidly. "Met before?" Her heart skipped, then stumbled. Asher continued, his gaze unwavering. "It wasn't here. It was years ago. New Orleans." Stella felt her stomach twist. New Orleans, a place she hadn't thought about in years. A night she tucked away in a corner of her memory. Soft, warm, bittersweet. She steadied herself on the doorway. "New Orleans?" she whispered. Asher nodded slowly. 7 years ago. The tech conference at the Royal Crescent Hotel. You were there with friends. I was giving a keynote speech." He swallowed. "You and I." Stella threw up a hand, her instinct to protect herself rising. "Stop. Don't say anything yet." She stared at him with wide eyes. "How would you even remember me?" Asher's voice softened. "Because that night was different. For me. I don't connect easily with people. But you, He paused, his expression shifting with something like vulnerability. You laughed at my terrible joke. The one about the hotel elevator playing jazz every time the doors opened. Stella's breath caught. She remembered that. She remembered laughing so hard that she spilled her drink. She remembered him laughing with her. She remembered walking along the French Quarter under glowing lanterns, feeling light and unburdened for the first time in years. She remembered the hotel bar piano playing softly in the background while they talked about family, dreams, frustrations, and life. Her pulse quickened, but she didn't say a word. Asher continued quietly. I asked you to have dinner with me, and you said yes. We talked until 2 in the morning. You wore a green dress, and you kept tucking your hair behind your ear when you were nervous. Stella felt her knees weaken. She remembered the dress exactly. She remembered being embarrassed because the strap kept slipping. And then, Asher said, voice growing even softer, we went upstairs to the rooftop balcony. The view of the Mississippi River lights was incredible. You told me you wanted more out of life. Stability, family, something real. Not just rushing from one responsibility to another. Stella lowered her head, her heart thudding painfully. He remembered everything. Everything she thought he forgot. Everything she believed meant nothing to him. And then, Asher whispered, we went back inside. And we… Stop, Stella breathed, holding up her hand again. Her voice trembled. Just stop. She leaned heavily on the doorframe, overwhelmed by emotions she kept buried. Stella took a slow breath. If all of that is true, why didn't you ever reach out? You left before I woke up. I thought… Her voice broke slightly. I thought I wasn't anything important to you. Asher's expression tightened with guilt. I left at dawn because I had an emergency meeting the next morning. I meant to reach out, truly, but by the time I tried, your number wasn't in my missed calls anymore. My phone had crashed, and I lost the contacts I saved that night. He looked down, then back up at her. It wasn't an excuse. It was a mistake. A stupid, careless mistake. Stella stared hard at him. She wanted to believe him, but the wounds of raising a child alone, the memories of fear, exhaustion, loneliness, those wounds ran deep. And you're telling me, Stella said shakily, that you think that night has something to do with Nia? Silence returned. Asher slowly dropped his gaze to the little girl holding onto Stella's pajama hem. Nia watched him with wide brown eyes that mirrored Stella's shape, but the subtle arch of her eyebrows. That was his. Asher knelt down slowly, respectfully keeping his distance. Nia, he whispered, can I ask how old you are? Nia tilted her head. I'm 5. Asher inhaled sharply. Stella felt her heart plummet. The math was instant, immediate, undeniable. He closed his eyes, grounding himself before he whispered, Stella, she was born the same year we met. Stella felt tears build behind her eyes. Not tears of sadness, not tears of joy. Tears of fear. Fear that everything she had built on her own was suddenly shifting beneath her feet. Asher, this is insane, she whispered. You show up at my door. You bring up a night I haven't spoken about in years. And now you're saying you might be… She pressed a shaking hand to her chest. You think you're Nia's father? Asher didn't move. His voice didn't waver. I don't think it. I feel it. He gestured gently toward Nia. The moment she said her name, something inside me recognized her. I don't know how to explain it, but I knew I had to find her. Stella shook her head, overwhelmed. Even if this were true, you can't just show up and claim. I'm not claiming anything, Asher interjected softly but firmly. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here because a little girl cried for help, and destiny put her call in my hands. The air felt heavy again. Nia tugged Stella's sleeve. Mommy, who is he? Stella looked down at her daughter, swallowing the lump in her throat before whispering, He's someone Mommy met a long time ago. Asher stood slowly. He didn't step closer. He gave her space. Stella, I'm not asking you to trust me right away. I know this is overwhelming, but I'm here now, and I want to know the truth. Stella wrapped an arm around Nia protectively. She wasn't ready to believe him. She wasn't ready to deny him either. Her voice was quiet but firm. We need proof. If what you're saying is true, we need more than memories. Asher nodded. I agree, completely. Their eyes held for a long moment, fear meeting hope, doubt meeting sincerity. Stella exhaled shakily. This can't be real. Asher's tone softened. Stella, it is. And as the winter breeze whispered across the porch, the truth neither expected was beginning to unfold, one that would bind their lives together in ways Stella had spent years avoiding, and Asher had unknowingly spent years searching for. For a long moment the porch was wrapped in a fragile silence, broken only by the faint winter breeze drifting through the neighborhood. Stella held Nia close, her hand trembling slightly as she tried to steady herself against the doorframe. The emotions in her chest swirled too fast to sort: fear, shock, disbelief, and, buried deep beneath it all, a faint flicker of recognition she wished she could ignore. Asher stood a respectful distance away, his breath forming soft clouds in the cold morning air. He looked at Stella with something gentle, yet urgent in his eyes. Not desperation, not demand, just truth, raw and steady. I know it sounds impossible, Asher said softly, but I'm not here to hurt you. I came because that call, her voice, it woke something in me. Something I didn't know I'd been missing. Stella's fingers tightened around Nia's small shoulder. You said you remember New Orleans. Anyone could make that up. I'm not making anything up, he replied calmly, reaching slowly into his coat pocket. And I can prove it. Stella's heart skipped. Nia peeked around her mother's hip, staring curiously. Asher pulled out a worn envelope, the edges soft, creased, clearly handled many times. From inside, he removed a small printed photograph. The colors were slightly faded, the lighting warm and dim with the golden hue of hotel bar lighting. He held it out, not forcing it, simply offering. Stella hesitated. Her breath stilled in her chest as she recognized the setting instantly, the Royal Crescent Hotel bar. The night she had felt seen, the night she trusted someone she barely knew. Her eyes dropped to the photo, and there they were, her younger self, smiling an unguarded smile she hadn't worn in years. Her curls fell loosely around her shoulders. She looked carefree, something she hadn't been since motherhood reshaped her world. And beside her, Asher, younger, yes, but unmistakably him. His arm rested gently behind her, not quite touching, but close enough to show comfort. His smile was small but real, softened in a way she had never seen on him now, in the present. Nia leaned forward. Mommy, that's you. Stella's throat tightened. Yes, baby. And that's him, Nia added matter-of-factly, pointing at Asher's face on the photo. Asher watched the recognition wash over Stella. First shock, then memory, then disbelief again. How? She whispered, voice trembling. How do you still have this? Asher lowered his gaze briefly, his voice softening. I didn't keep many personal things. I didn't think I needed to, but that night, I kept the photo. I don't know why. Maybe I did know why, and I just never admitted it. He looked up, eyes sincere. Stella, you mattered to me. Even then. Stella's breath hitched. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the photo from him, careful not to smudge the worn edges. She traced the outline of her younger self with her thumb, a version of her before. Responsibility had shaped her before exhaustion had dimmed her spark. She remembered the photographer, a friendly bartender, who offered to take a picture after watching them laugh all night. She had forgotten that moment. Forgotten the picture existed at all. Why didn't you reach out? She whispered again, barely audible. I tried, Asher said honestly. By the time I called the hotel for your information, you had already checked out. My phone crashed the next day, and I lost your contact, and life got busy, too busy. I buried myself in work, trying to forget how lonely the world felt. He paused, swallowing. And I did forget. I forced myself to. Until last night, when I heard her voice. He glanced at Nia, who now stared up at him with quiet curiosity. Stella clutched the photo, feeling her heartbeat in her palms. She had lived years believing he had abandoned her. Even if unintentionally, she had built walls so thick that even memories couldn't break through. And now that memory stood on her porch, staring at her with eyes full of regret. Asher, she whispered, shaking her head slowly. Even if all this is true, even if that night happened the way you say, How can you believe Nia is yours? He didn't hesitate. Because when you opened that door, and I saw her eyes, I felt something I've never felt before. Nia blinked, staring up at him, small fingers still wrapped around her mother's sweater. Stella shook her head, trying to clear the fog of emotion. Feeling something isn't proof. No, Asher agreed gently, but it's enough to start asking the right questions. And enough to not walk away. The honesty in his tone hit her harder than she expected. Nia tugged Stella's sleeve again. "Mommy," she whispered, "can he come inside? He looks cold." Stella blinked, stunned by her daughter's unexpected invitation. Asher smiled softly, humbled. "It's okay, sweetheart. Only if your mommy says it's okay." Stella hesitated. Every instinct told her to protect herself, to protect Nia. But another part of her, the part that still remembered the warmth of that night in New Orleans, whispered that maybe, just maybe, she needed answers as much as he did. She stepped aside carefully. "Come in." Asher nodded gratefully and stepped into the living room, taking in the modest but warm home. Family photos lined the wall, Stella holding newborn Nia, Nia playing in the park, Stella smiling through weary eyes. His heart tightened. This was the life he never knew happened. Nia hopped onto the couch, hugging a stuffed bunny. She studied Asher like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. "Do you like cookies?" she asked suddenly. Asher blinked, then chuckled softly. "I do. Mommy made some. I shouldn't give them to strangers, though." Stella raised a brow at her daughter. "Nia." "But he's not a stranger," Nia added innocently. "He's the phone man." Asher's chest warmed at the title. "The phone man," he repeated with a smile. "I can accept that." While Nia chattered softly, Stella studied Asher. How gently he interacted with her daughter, how careful he was not to overstep. Nia felt comfortable around him in a way Stella couldn't ignore. A natural ease, a natural connection, something Stella had never let herself imagine. After a moment, Asher cleared his throat. "Stella, I want you to know something. I'm not trying to replace anything in your life. You've raised her beautifully. You've done everything alone. I see that." His voice dropped. "I'm just trying to understand where I fit in this story." Stella felt her chest tighten again. "And what if you don't?" she said quietly. Asher nodded slowly. "Then I will respect that. But if there's even a chance," his voice softened, "that she's mine, I can't ignore that. Not anymore." He sat on the edge of the armchair, as if afraid to disturb anything in the house. Nia crawled to the floor and pulled a small toy car from her basket. She rolled it gently toward him. "For you," she said brightly. Asher blinked, visibly moved. "Thank you, Nia." She smiled proudly and rolled it again, this time waiting for him to push it back. He did, and in that moment, something inside Stella cracked, not painfully, but gently. Like the first break in an ice sheet that signaled a coming thaw. This wasn't forced. This wasn't pressured. This was natural, effortless. It was what children did when they recognized kindness. It was what a father and daughter might do without even realizing it. Stella looked at the photo again, gripping it tightly. Asher looked at her. Their eyes met. And for the first time since he knocked on her door, they both felt the truth quietly settling between them. They could no longer run from it. The living room felt smaller now, warmer, heavier, filled with more air than Stella could breathe. Asher sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped tightly. Nia, sensing something grown-up unfolding, inched closer to her mother, leaning against her side with her stuffed bunny pressed to her chest. Stella looked down at the photograph still in her hand. Her thumb brushed along the corner of the faded print, a memory she once allowed herself to forget. Now she held it as though it were a piece of her past and her future colliding at once. "Asher," she finally whispered, "we need to be absolutely sure. I won't confuse her, or myself, without proof." Asher nodded immediately, grateful for the clarity. "I understand completely. I want proof just as much as you do." He said it quietly, but the weight of his words settled deeply into the room. Stella took a breath. "There's a clinic not far from here. They do DNA testing, but it's early morning. I'm not even sure if they're open yet." Asher stood. "I'll take you. Whenever you're ready. We don't have to rush." Stella hesitated. Every instinct in her body screamed to move slowly, to guard every step. But there was also something else, a pull she hadn't expected. A pull toward clarity, toward truth. She glanced at Nia, who gazed up innocently, unaware that her entire life story teetered on the brink of change. "Mommy," Nia whispered, "are we going to the doctor again?" Stella knelt, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "Just a little visit," she said softly. "We want to make sure everyone knows the truth." Nia nodded, trusting her mother completely. Stella rose carefully, wincing from the pressure on her sprained ankle. Asher instinctively stepped forward. "Let me help." She stiffened for a moment, pride and vulnerability wrestling, before she allowed him to lightly support her arm. His touch was steady, respectful, never overstepping, just enough to give her balance. They walked together toward the door, their steps slow but deliberate, like two people learning how to exist in the same world again. The clinic was only 10 minutes away, but every minute felt like a suspended breath. Asher drove quietly, glancing at Stella through the rearview mirror as she sat in the back seat with Nia. Stella kept her gaze focused outside the window, watching the winter sun rise over Greenwood's modest rooftops. She hadn't expected her day to begin like this. She had expected oatmeal and cartoons and healing, not answers. Nia kicked her little feet under the car seat. "Mommy, do doctors give candy?" Stella forced a soft smile. "Sometimes. What about this doctor?" Stella glanced at Asher, whose eyes briefly met hers before returning to the road. "This doctor tells us very special things," she replied gently. Nia nodded, as though she understood perfectly. Asher's hands tightened around the steering wheel. He had faced intimidating boards, investors, legal battles, yet sitting in that car, with the possibility that the little girl behind him was his child. That was the first time in years he felt real fear, not fear of failure, fear of hope. The waiting room. The clinic waiting room was quiet at this early hour. Soft instrumental music played over the speakers, and the receptionist behind the desk blinked sleepily as Stella approached with her brace-supported ankle. "DNA testing?" the receptionist asked kindly once Stella explained. Stella nodded. "We need 2 test kits. One for the child, one for the potential father." The receptionist typed quickly and gestured to a small consultation room. "You can wait in there. The nurse will be in shortly." As they entered the room, Stella gently set Nia on a chair beside her. Asher sat across from them, hands clasped again, leg bouncing lightly, a small tell that the pressure was building inside him. Stella watched him quietly. He wasn't overbearing. He wasn't demanding. He wasn't trying to take over the situation. He looked scared, and that surprised her. Billionaires weren't supposed to look scared. But this man looked like someone whose world was held together by a thin thread. When the nurse entered, cheerful and warm, Nia perked up. "Aye, sweetheart," she said to the little girl. "We're just going to tickle your cheek a little with a soft swab, okay?" Nia held her bunny tighter. "Does it hurt?" "Nope," the nurse said with a bright smile. "Just a little tickle." Nia relaxed, nodding bravely. "Who wants to go first?" the nurse asked. Nia pointed at Asher. "Him." Asher chuckled softly. "I'll take one for the team," he said, leaning forward. The nurse swabbed the inside of his cheek. He barely flinched. Then came Stella's turn. She remained still, allowing the swab despite the knot in her stomach tightening with every second. Finally, the nurse knelt in front of Nia. "Ready?" Nia closed her eyes dramatically and said, "Do it fast." The nurse laughed softly and swabbed her mouth with gentle care. When she finished, she collected all 3 samples and sealed them in the specimen envelopes. "We'll have results within the hour," the nurse said. "You can wait here or go for a short walk." Stella's ankle throbbed. She wasn't walking anywhere. "We'll stay," she said. The nurse nodded and left. Silence settled again. The ticking wall clock grew louder with each passing second. Asher stood near the window, staring out as the small town began to stir with morning life. Stella sat beside Nia, fingers tightly interlaced. Her thoughts ran wild. What if he was the father? What if her world was about to shift forever? What if everything she had protected Nia from was now unfolding right in front of her? She closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. "Asher," she said quietly. He turned. "If the test says you're not," she swallowed. "What happens then?" He shook his head. Then you'll never hear from me again, unless you want to. His voice was steady. But if the test says I am. He stepped closer, not invading, just enough to show sincerity. Then I'll spend every day making up for the years I missed. Stella's eyes glistened. And what if she doesn't accept you? What if she's scared? He glanced at Nia, now nibbling on her bunny's ear, unaware of the storm swirling around her. Then I'll go at her pace. I'll earn every moment. I won't take anything from you or her. Stella inhaled shakily. The honesty in his voice. It disarmed her. Before she could respond, the door opened. The nurse stepped in holding a sealed white envelope. Ms. Harris, Mr. Brennan. The results are ready. Stella's heart pounded against her ribs so hard she thought the room could hear it. The nurse handed her the envelope. It felt heavier than paper, like it held the weight of 5 years of secrets, fears, and unanswered questions. Stella's fingers trembled as she slid her thumb beneath the seal. She hesitated. Asher, she whispered, should you read it with me? His voice was low. Yes. He stepped beside her, close but not touching. Nia looked up at them, confused but trusting. She reached out and placed her tiny hand on Stella's knee. Mommy, what's wrong? Stella kissed her forehead. Nothing, baby. Mommy's just finding something out. Slowly, Stella unfolded the paper. Her eyes scanned the top, then the middle, then the final line. A tear slipped down her cheek. Asher swallowed hard. Stella, what does it say? Her breath trembled as she whispered, voice cracking. It says, 99.9% confirmed. You're her father. Asher's world stopped. His breath caught. His entire chest tightened, as though 5 years of missed moments crashed into him all at once. Nia tugged Stella's arm. Mommy, what does that mean? Stella knelt in front of her daughter, tears falling freely now. It means, baby, this man, he's your daddy. Nia blinked. She looked at Asher. Then she did something no one expected. She slid off the chair, walked slowly to Asher, and placed her hand on his. You're the phone man, she whispered. But you're my daddy? Asher knelt, his knees weak, his throat burning, and gently touched her tiny hand with trembling fingers. Yes, sweetheart, he whispered, voice breaking. I'm your daddy. And for the first time in his entire life, Asher Brennan felt whole. The weekend arrived faster than Stella expected. Since the DNA results confirmed what neither she nor Asher had been prepared for, the days that followed were filled with a strange, delicate quiet, an emotional pause where both of them recalibrated their worlds around a truth neither could escape. You can bring her over when you're comfortable, Asher had said gently, not pushing. No pressure. I want this to happen at your pace. But Nia made the decision easier. Mommy, she had said while coloring at the kitchen table, can we go see Daddy's house? Just like that, the little girl turned a life-changing truth into something simple, hopeful, and pure. Now, as Stella stood in the lobby of Asher's luxury building with Nia's small hand in hers, she felt a mixture of nerves, curiosity, and something else she wasn't ready to name. The marble floors gleamed under her shoes, reflecting pristine chandeliers and tasteful decor. It was a world so different from her modest home that she felt almost out of place. Nia, however, was mesmerized. Mommy, it's shiny here, she whispered, her eyes wide as she spun slowly to take everything in. Stella squeezed her hand gently. Stay close, baby. Before she could say more, the elevator doors slid open, revealing Asher. Standing inside, smiling in a way Stella had never seen before. Softer, warmer, almost boyish. Hi, he said, his voice gentle. Nia grinned. Hi, Daddy. The word still hit him like a miracle every time she said it. He crouched down and opened his arms slightly, not assuming, just offering. Nia accepted instantly, running into his embrace. Stella's breath caught. Something inside her stirred, an emotion she tried hard to push away. Asher lifted Nia lightly. You ready to check out our weekend adventure? She nodded excitedly. Yes. He stood and looked at Stella with a quiet respect. Thank you for trusting me with this. She nodded once, unsure how to respond without revealing how vulnerable she felt. The elevator rose smoothly to the penthouse floor. When the doors opened, Nia gasped so loudly that Stella couldn't help but smile. The penthouse was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a glittering skyline. Sunlight poured into the huge living space, illuminating modern sofas, sleek furniture, and carefully curated artwork. But what caught Nia's eye wasn't any of that. It was the play corner. Asher had set up a small area with coloring books, plush toys, a mini table, a soft reading rug, and a little telescope positioned near the window. "You made that for me?" Nia asked, her eyes sparkling. Asher nodded. "I wanted you to feel at home here." Stella's chest tightened again, this time with something warm. Nia immediately ran toward the telescope and tried to look through it. "Mommy, look, I can see buildings." Asher laughed softly. "That's the whole city, sweetheart." Stella walked slowly into the penthouse, taking everything in. She wasn't materialistic, but there was no denying the beauty of the space. What struck her most, however, wasn't the wealth. It was the care Asher put into making it child-friendly for the first time. "You didn't have to do all this," she said quietly. He looked at her, sincerity written across his face. "Yes, I did." A simple sentence, but it hit her deeper than he realized. Asher spent the next hour introducing Nia to everything in the penthouse. He lifted her so she could press the button that dimmed the lights. She squealed. He showed her how the kitchen island could light up at the base. She giggled. He handed her a remote that opened the window blinds. "Magic," she shrieked. "Nope," Asher said, with mock seriousness. "Just science." Nia dissolved into laughter. Stella watched from the sofa, arms folded loosely, her heart softening minute by minute. She was seeing a side of Asher she never encountered in New Orleans. And certainly not in the present. A gentle, almost goofy side. A version of him she suspected few people ever saw. He wasn't the powerful CEO right now. He wasn't the billionaire with a skyscraper office. He wasn't the man haunted by years of loneliness. He was a father, learning how to love. Nia hopped onto his lap with a picture book. "Daddy, read this." "Of course," he said, wrapping an arm around her small frame. He opened the book, but Nia interrupted him. "Wait. Use the voice." "What voice?" he asked, confused. "The funny one." Asher chuckled, and in an instant, he transformed his voice into a deep, exaggerated narrator tone that made Nia explode into laughter. Stella covered her mouth, hiding a smile. He looked ridiculous, yet perfect. The first surprise. Later that afternoon, Asher said, "Nia, I have something else for you." He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a medium-sized box wrapped in simple blue paper. Nia's eyes widened. "Is it Christmas?" "Not quite," he said with a smile, "but I wanted to give you something special." She tore the paper eagerly. Inside was a small bike, pink, with training wheels, a basket, and glittery streamers on the handles. Nia gasped. "A bike?" Stella's eyes widened in surprise. "Asher, that's too much." He shook his head. "When I was little, I didn't have much. But the day I got my first bike, I felt like the whole world opened up. I wanted her to feel that too." Nia squeezed her stuffed bunny. "Can I ride it now?" "Inside the penthouse?" Stella said. Nia paused. "No." Asher laughed. "We can go to the rooftop garden. There's space there." "The rooftop has a garden?" Stella asked, raising a brow. "It has several," Asher said casually. Nia jumped. "Let's go." He carried the bike to the elevator while Stella walked beside him. On the rooftop, Nia rode in wobbly circles while Asher stayed behind her, ready to catch her if she fell. At one point, Nia looked back at him and shouted, "Daddy, I'm doing it." Asher smiled so wide, Stella almost didn't recognize him. "You are," he said proudly. "You really are." Later, as the sun dipped low and Nia colored quietly in her play corner, Stella stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city. The wind was cool, brushing against her skin. Asher approached her, keeping a respectful distance. "Thank you for coming today," he said softly. She nodded. "She needed to see you." "And you?" he asked. Stella looked out at the skyline. "I needed clarity. Did you get it?" She hesitated. "Yes," she finally whispered. "You're good with her." He exhaled softly. "I didn't know I could be." There was a pause, gentle, lingering, almost intimate. She turned back inside. We should get ready to leave. She'll get tired soon. He nodded, but his eyes held something tender. As they prepared to leave, Nia tugged on Asher's sleeve. Daddy, can we come back? Asher crouched. Whenever your mommy says yes. Stella watched their exchange, her heart caught between caution and something warm she didn't want to define too soon. She picked up Nia's coat. Come on, baby, say goodbye. Nia wrapped her arms around Asher's neck in a tight hug. Bye, Daddy. Asher closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the moment. Bye, sweetheart. Stella stepped toward the elevator, but paused. Asher, this was a good day. His smile was soft. It was, and as the elevator doors closed between them, Stella felt something shift, something quiet and unexpected. A beginning, not forced, not rushed, just real. Sunday morning in Greenwood had its own rhythm, slow, comforting, and familiar. The church bells chimed softly through the neighborhood as families walked in twos and threes. Toward the brick building that stood proudly on the corner of Maple Street, the scent of warm biscuits and maple syrup drifted from the fellowship hall, promising community and comfort. Stella stood in front of her bedroom mirror, straightening the collar of her blouse. Her ankle was healing, wrapped neatly under her jeans, but she still moved with a slight caution. Today felt important. Not because of church, she'd gone her entire life. Not because of the community breakfast, she attended often, but because Asher would be there. He had asked gently the night before, not forcing, not assuming. Would it be okay if I joined you both for church tomorrow? I'd like to see your world, her world. Stella had hesitated. Church was her safe space, her grounding. Bringing Asher into it scared her. It made things real. Too real. But Nia had squealed, Daddy's coming to church with us. And that was that. Now Stella breathed deeply and whispered to herself. Just one step at a time. Nia ran into the room wearing her Sunday dress, yellow, with a tiny bow at the waist. Mommy, do I look pretty? Beautiful, Stella said, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. Come on, let's go meet him. Outside the building, Asher stood by his car in a simple blue sweater and black slacks. No suit, no intimidating corporate armor. Just a man trying to fit into a world that wasn't his. And somehow, he looked nervous. Nia ran straight to him. Daddy, you came. He crouched down and hugged her. Of course I did. Stella watched him for a moment, how naturally he knelt to her level, how soft his expression became around her. It tugged at something inside her she wasn't ready to face. Good morning, she said, approaching. His smile warmed. Morning. You look nice. She felt her cheeks warm, but quickly nodded. Let's go inside. The moment they stepped inside, the familiar chatter of church members filled the air. Tables were lined with steaming trays of eggs, sausage, biscuits, grits, and fresh fruit. Volunteers bustled around with aprons tied tight, offering warm greetings. Stella, baby, look at you limping less. God is good, called Sister Elaine, her voice booming as she approached with open arms. Stella smiled. He sure is. Sister Elaine's eyes shifted to Asher and widened. Well now, who is this handsome man? Stella felt a blush rise. This is Asher. Nia's. She hesitated. The word felt big on her tongue. Father. Asher stepped forward politely. I'm her father. A few people nearby overheard, their faces lighting with surprise and curiosity. Sister Elaine slapped a hand over her chest, dramatically. Oh, praise the Lord. Finally, a man stepping in for his child. Stella groaned inwardly, but Asher only laughed softly. Come on in, honey, Sister Elaine said, waving him toward the food tables. You're family now. Family. The word hit Stella again. They filled their plates and settled at a round table near the window. Asher looked around the room, fascinated. People sang along softly to the gospel music playing through the speakers. Children ran between tables. Older women exchanged recipes and stories. This is amazing, Asher murmured. Stella looked at him, surprised. You like it? He nodded slowly. It feels warm, real. I've never experienced this before. She watched him as he ate a biscuit awkwardly, clearly unfamiliar with. The homemade texture compared to the gourmet pastries he was used to. But he didn't complain, didn't seem out of place. He looked At peace, Nia dipped her sausage into syrup and giggled. "Daddy, do you want some?" He leaned forward. "Absolutely." She fed him a tiny syrup-covered piece, and he exaggerated the taste reaction. "This is the greatest breakfast in the entire world," he declared dramatically. Nia burst into laughter. Stella covered her smile with her hand. Every time she saw them connect, something inside her melted. Asher wiped syrup off his chin and leaned closer to her. "Thank you for inviting me. This means more than you know." "Thank Nia," Stella replied softly. "She wanted you here." He nodded, looking at his daughter with a tenderness she didn't expect from him. After breakfast, families gathered in the sanctuary for a short prayer service. Stella led Asher to a pew near the middle. He sat awkwardly at first, his posture rigid, hands folded neatly. Nia climbed onto his lap and whispered, "You have to say amen when Pastor says it." Asher smiled. "Okay. You'll help me?" "Yes," she whispered proudly. The pastor began speaking about unexpected blessings, about life changing in moments we could never predict. Every word seemed to weave itself into Stella's heart. At one point she glanced at Asher. He wasn't fidgeting. He wasn't bored. He wasn't out of place. He sat with Nia curled against his chest, listening intently, absorbing the words like someone starving for meaning. For the first time, Stella imagined what it would look like to sit beside him every Sunday. To raise Nia with two loving parents instead of one. To share life instead of carrying everything alone. The thought shook her and warmed her, simultaneously. After the service, as people filed out, Sister Elaine stopped them again. "Asher, honey, you better come back next Sunday," she said, wagging a finger playfully. Nia nodded emphatically. "He has to. He's Daddy." Stella didn't miss the way Asher's eyes softened at the sound of that word. "I'll be here if that's what you both want," he said. Stella felt her stomach flutter, but before she could respond, "Sister," Elaine grabbed Asher's wrist and placed something in his hand. "A pocket Bible," she announced proudly. "Every good father needs one." Asher looked stunned, but touched. "Thank you," he said quietly. As they walked back through the parking lot, Nia skipped ahead, letting her bunny swing by its ears. Stella walked beside Asher, her steps slow, thoughtful. "You handled all that better than I expected," she admitted. He laughed softly, honestly. "I was terrified. I've never been part of something like this." "You did well," she said. "Only because you and Nia were there." Her heart skipped. "Asher." He stopped walking. "Stella, I know this is still overwhelming. I know you need time. I'm not pushing anything. I just want to be here, not to take over your life, not to rewrite it, just to be in it. In whatever way you allow." She looked at him, really looked. His sincerity, his humility, his effort. He wasn't the same man she met 7 years ago. He was softer, more grounded, more human. "Let's keep taking it slow," she said gently. His smile was small but full. "Slow is perfect." Nia ran back to them, throwing her arms around both their legs. "Are we going home together?" Stella and Asher exchanged a glance, a moment of shared understanding neither had expected so soon. Stella knelt. "We all have things to do today, baby, but we'll see Daddy soon." Nia pouted briefly, then brightened. "Okay." Asher crouched and hugged her. "I'll see you very soon." Nia kissed his cheek. "Bye, Daddy." He closed his eyes for a second, absorbing the pure love in that gesture. Stella felt her heart soften again, dangerously. Sunday evening settled over Greenwood, with a warm golden tint, the kind of quiet glow that made the entire neighborhood feel cozy and gentle. Stella stood in her kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta, while Nia sat at the table coloring. The day had been full, emotionally layered, unexpectedly comforting, and deeply revealing. She hadn't expected Asher to fit into her world as seamlessly as he had that morning. She hadn't expected him to laugh with the church members, or to eat syrup-covered sausage, or to let Nia sit in his lap during prayer. She certainly hadn't expected him to hold a pocket Bible with such genuine appreciation, and she definitely hadn't expected the way her heart reacted to it all. "Mommy," Nia said softly, swinging her legs under the chair. "When can Daddy come again?" Stella's spoon paused mid-stir. "I'm not sure yet," she said gently. "But soon." "Tomorrow?" Nia asked hopefully. Stella chuckled. Not that soon, baby. But even as she laughed, her chest tightened with something she didn't want to admit. She wanted to see him again, too. Before she could dwell on it, there was a soft knock at the door. Nia's head shot up. Daddy? Stella's breath caught. No, sweetheart. Daddy didn't say he was. Another knock. This one gentler. Hesitant. Stella wiped her hands on a towel and walked to the door, her pulse unsteady. She opened it. And there he was. Asher stood on her porch, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched as though unsure whether he should even be there. His hair was wind-tousled, his sweater soft, his expression caught somewhere between nervous and hopeful. "Hi," he said quietly. Stella blinked, surprised. "Asher, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" He exhaled slowly. "I know I came earlier today, and I know we said we'd go slow, but—" He hesitated. "I didn't want the day to end without seeing you again." Her breath lodged in her chest. He wasn't talking about Nia this time. He was talking about her. Nia ran to the doorway, squealing, "Daddy!" Asher bent and hugged her tightly. "Hi, sweetheart. I didn't mean to interrupt dinner. You can eat with us," Nia announced confidently. Stella opened her mouth to protest. This was too much too fast, but the words wouldn't come. Something inside her softened at the sight of Nia, pressed proudly against Asher's side. "Asher," Stella said gently, "you really didn't have to come back." He straightened, meeting her eyes. "I know," he murmured, "but I wanted to." A quiet warmth spread through her chest, the kind she tried to ignore but couldn't suppress. "Come in," she whispered. They gathered around the small kitchen table, steam rising from bowls of pasta. Asher sat beside Nia, while Stella sat across from them. It was a humble setting, nothing like the penthouse, nothing like Asher's world, but he smiled through the entire meal as though it were exactly where he wanted to be. Nia talked non-stop. "Daddy, at church Sister Elaine gave you a book. Are you gonna read it? Do you like syrup? Mommy said you look nice in blue." Mommy said. Stella's cheeks flushed. "Nia." Asher's eyes flicked to Stella's and held. "I like blue, and I like being here." Her pulse fluttered. Nia stuffed another forkful of pasta into her mouth, oblivious to the tension blooming between the two adults. After dinner, Nia curled up on the couch with her bunny and fell asleep surprisingly fast. Church always wore her out. Stella carried her gently to her room, tucking her under a soft blanket. When she returned to the living room, Asher stood near the window, the lamplight casting warm shadows across his face. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "I should probably go," he said softly. She nodded. "Probably," but neither of them moved. He took a small step toward her. She took a small breath. "Stella." His voice was low. "Today meant a lot to me. Church, breakfast, watching you in your world." He paused. It felt natural. Her pulse quickened. "It did," she whispered. He stepped closer. "And tonight, coming back here, that wasn't planned. I just found myself in the car, driving toward your house before I even realized." Stella's heart fluttered painfully. Her voice softened. "Why?" Asher swallowed, eyes locked on hers. "Because I wasn't ready for today to be over with you." The air thickened, warm, heavy, electric. Stella's breath trembled. She tried to speak but couldn't. Asher hesitated, fighting the urge to step closer, then asked gently, "Is this okay?" Stella's eyes softened. "Yes." He closed the remaining distance between them. Slowly, respectfully, letting her stop him at any moment. She didn't. His hand lifted gradually, fingers brushing a nervous curl away from her cheek. Stella's breath caught at the soft, deliberate touch. "Stella," he murmured, voice tender and raw, "you make it very hard to go slow." Her lips parted in surprise, and maybe something else. He continued softly, "But I will. Only at your pace." Her heart raced. I don't even know my pace right now." He smiled gently. "Then we'll find it together." She stared at him, overwhelmed, by the sincerity in his voice, by the warmth in his touch, by the connection neither planned but both felt deeply. The moment stretched between them, fragile and burning. "Asher," she whispered. He heard everything she couldn't say in that single word. And then, without rushing, without assuming, he lowered his forehead gently to hers. Her breath hitched. His hand slid to her jaw, warm and careful. "I've wanted to do this since the moment you opened that door," he whispered. Her voice barely escaped. "Then do it." He lifted her chin slightly and brushed his lips against hers, soft at first, tender, almost questioning. She exhaled shakily and kissed him back. Slow, emotional, full of the years they lost and the possibility of the years they could have. His other hand gently cupped her waist, pulling her just close enough to feel the warmth between them, but still giving her space to retreat if she needed. She didn't. Her fingers curled into the fabric of his sweater, anchoring herself to the moment she didn't know she wanted, but now didn't want to end. The kiss deepened only as much as she allowed, gentle, warm, grounded in trust rather than urgency. When they slowly pulled apart, neither spoke immediately. Their breaths mingled softly. Her cheeks flushed. His expression softened in a way she had never seen, not even in New Orleans. "Stella," he whispered, thumb brushing her cheek. "I'm here. I'm not running. Not again." Tears pricked her eyes unexpectedly. Not sad tears. Not scared tears. Tears of release. Tears of hope. "I don't know where this is going," she murmured honestly. "Then let's find out together," he said, his voice quiet but confident. She nodded, swallowing the emotion rising in her throat. He leaned forward again, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, a gesture so gentle, so pure, it nearly broke her. Finally she whispered, "You should go, before I change my mind about Slow." He laughed softly. Fair enough." But as he stepped toward the door, he paused and turned back. "Stella." "Yeah?" His eyes warmed. "That wasn't Slow." She laughed, really laughed, and he smiled like the sound was the greatest thing he'd heard in years. "Family, if you're still with us, drop a heart emoji in the comments and tell us your favorite moment so far. Your engagement truly helps this channel grow." Monday morning arrived glowing with soft sunlight that spilled across Greenwood's quiet streets. Stella opened her front curtains, while Nia scrambled excitedly into her sneakers. "Mommy, Daddy's coming today, right? Right?" Nia bounced in place, her energy limitless. Stella tried not to smile too visibly. "Yes, baby. He said he'd be here after breakfast." "Good." Nia grinned like the sun itself. "Daddy said today we learn to ride fast." Stella laughed softly, smoothing Nia's curls. "Let's try to ride steady before fast, okay?" Nia pretended not to hear, already racing to the door with boundless enthusiasm. Stella's stomach fluttered, part nerves, part excitement she didn't want to name yet. Last night's kiss replayed in her mind with a warm intensity she struggled to shake. The tenderness, the sincerity, the way he paused before touching her, always letting her lead the pace. She hadn't expected that kiss, and she hadn't expected to want another. Before she could unpack her feelings further, there was a gentle knock, familiar, controlled, unmistakable. Nia squealed, "Daddy." Stella's breath caught. She opened the door, and there he was. Asher stood on the porch in a casual gray hoodie, black joggers, and tennis shoes, as though fatherhood had softened his edges overnight. His hair was slightly windswept, and he held a small helmet in hand. "Good morning," he said, eyes warming when they landed on Stella. Then lowering to Nia, "You ready, sweetheart?" "Yes," Nia shouted, jumping into his arms. Asher laughed, lifting her easily. "We have a big day ahead." Stella stepped aside to let them in. "She's been talking about it since sunrise." "Well," Asher chuckled, "then we better make her the fastest rider in Greenwood." "No fast," Stella corrected quickly. "Steady, balanced." Asher grinned. "Steady, balanced, and maybe a little fast later." Stella shook her head, biting back a laugh. They walked together to the small neighborhood park near the corner of Elm Street. The morning air was crisp, the sky bright, and children's laughter echoed from the playground nearby. Asher set the bike on the path, adjusting the seat height. He checked the tires with a seriousness that almost made Stella smile. "You look like you're prepping for a NASA launch," she teased. He smirked. "I take safety seriously." Nia hopped excitedly in place. "Daddy, can we start? Can we start? Can we start?" Asher knelt to her level. "Okay, sweetheart. First rule, Daddy never lets go unless you say so. Understand?" Nia nodded. "Understand." Second rule, he added, we go slow. Daddy. Nia groaned, repeating Stella's earlier tone. Slow? He laughed. We'll get to fast. But first, trust. Nia accepted this with a dramatic sigh. Stella watched from a bench nearby, her heart swelling as she saw her daughter trust a man she had known only briefly, but loved instinctively. Asher placed the helmet gently on Nia's head. Ready? Yes. He steadied the bike, holding both handlebars while walking beside her. Push the pedals. Good, good. The bike wobbled. Nia shrieked. Asher tightened his grip instantly. I've got you. She giggled, confidence restored. Stella felt something warm ripple through her. Pride, gratitude, awe. She had carried the weight of parenting alone for so long that watching someone genuinely share the load felt almost surreal. And the way Asher looked at Nia, as if she was the center of his world, it shook Stella more than she expected. Okay, sweetheart, we're going to try again, Asher said patiently. This time, Daddy will hold your seat, not the handlebars. Nia nodded bravely. I can do it. Yes, you can. She pushed the pedals. Wobble, steady, wobble. Asher jogged lightly beside her, guiding her gently. You're doing great. Keep looking ahead. Nia squealed. Mommy, Mommy, look. Stella waved from the bench. I see you, baby. Asher grinned, jogging beside the tiny bike like a proud coach. Keep going, sweetheart. And then, without warning, the bike straightened. Her balance held. Her feet pushed steadily. Asher's hand slowly drifted away. Nia kept going, unaided, free. Mommy, she shouted triumphantly. I'm doing it. Stella stood, clapping her hands, overwhelmed with emotion. Yes, you are. You're doing it. Asher stopped running and stood still for a moment, watching his daughter, tears suddenly burning behind his eyes. This moment, this tiny victory, meant more to him than any business deal, any award, any skyscraper he ever built. He turned to Stella. She saw the emotion on his face. And she softened completely. Nia's excitement got the best of her. She turned sharply, too sharply. And the wheel caught the edge of the path. She toppled. Stella gasped. But before she could even move, Asher was already sprinting. He dropped to his knees beside her. Nia, sweetheart, look at me. Are you okay? Nia sniffled, rubbing her elbow. I fell. Stella arrived, breathless. Baby, are you hurt? Asher checked her gently. No cuts, no scrapes, just a tiny bruise. You're okay, he whispered, brushing her hair back. Falling is part of learning. Nia hiccuped. It scared me. Asher kissed her forehead. It scared Daddy too. But you're brave, and brave girls get back up. Nia wiped her eyes. Can I try again? Stella looked at her, impressed. If you want to. Asher nodded. Only if you're ready. Nia nodded, climbing back on. And this time, Stella stood beside Asher as they jogged together. A team. A family. Later that day, Asher invited them back to the penthouse for lunch. Normally Stella would hesitate, but today something inside her felt different, open. She sat on the sofa while Asher and Nia made sandwiches in the kitchen. Well, attempted to. Daddy, too much peanut butter. Impossible. Peanut butter improves everything. Mommy says not too much. Mommy is wise, Asher admitted. Stella laughed from the sofa, watching them communicate like they'd known each other for years. When lunch was ready, Asher set the table. Nia sat between them, swinging her little legs. Stella took a bite and raised an eyebrow. Is this grape jelly? Nia burst into giggles. Daddy said grape is fancy. Asher rubbed the back of his neck shyly. I may have exaggerated. Stella shook her head, hiding her smile. A little, but her heart warmed. He was trying. Not for show, not for ego, not to impress. He was trying because he genuinely loved being Nia's father. And something in that truth pulled Stella closer to him in ways she wasn't ready to say out loud. When Stella prepared to leave, Nia clung to Asher's leg. Daddy, can we do bike again tomorrow? Asher knelt in front of her. Absolutely. Pinky promise? He held out his pinky. Pinky promise. Stella watched them with softened eyes. Before she turned to go, Asher caught her gaze. I'm learning, he said quietly. I don't know everything, but I want to be good at this. You are, she said softly. Their eyes lingered. A connection deepening. A future forming. A family beginning. Stella felt it. Asher felt it. Even the room seemed to feel it. The following week unfolded in ways Stella never expected. News traveled fast in Greenwood, especially through the members of her church and the closely knitted neighborhood where people still waved from porches and greeted each other by name. Stella wasn't used to being the center of attention. She preferred quiet routines, predictable days, and going unnoticed. But now, ever since Sunday's breakfast and Asher's presence by her side, whispers had begun to follow her. Some were harmless. Is that the father finally showing up? He seems like a good man. Others carried judgment. Why didn't he show up sooner? She should be careful with men like that. Billionaire or not, people change when they get bored. Stella tried her best to ignore them, but whispered assumptions had a way of clinging to the heart like burrs in fabric. Stella placed a carton of eggs into her cart as Nia sat in the basket humming to herself. The grocery aisles were usually her peaceful routine. Not today. Saw you at church yesterday, a woman from the deli called out with a thin smile. Stella returned a polite nod. Yes, ma'am. That the father? The woman asked, slicing turkey without breaking eye contact. Yes. A long pause. Well, better late than never. Stella's jaw tightened. Thank you. She turned, trying not to let the comments sink into her spirit, but the words chased her through the aisle like shadows. At the cereal section, two older ladies whispered behind her. That him I saw holding the little girl? Yes. Tall, handsome fella. Always the tall ones. You can't trust them. Stella pretended to read the cereal box, her heart tightening painfully. She'd spent years building her peace. She didn't want rumors or assumptions unraveling it. Nia looked up at her with big, curious eyes. Mommy, why is everybody talking? People just talk, baby, Stella whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. It doesn't mean anything. But she felt it. It did mean something. It meant she wasn't used to being seen, and now everyone was watching. Asher hadn't escaped the ripple effect either. Word traveled quickly through his company. The receptionist whispered, I didn't know he had a daughter. An intern murmured, She's 5, does that add up? Employees speculated, poorly hiding their curiosity. In the boardroom, even the executives exchanged glances. Asher, is it true you have a child? One whispered while reviewing reports. Asher didn't flinch. Yes. The executive blinked. And, with a woman in Greenwood? Yes. A beat of silence. Should we issue a press statement? Asher's expression hardened, in a way that reminded the entire room who he truly was. My child's life is not up for public commentary. Neither is her mother's. The room fell silent, humbled. Asher wasn't ashamed. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't confused. He was firm, clear, steadfast, and fully prepared to defend what was his. Later that evening, Asher picked up Stella and Nia to go out for ice cream. Stella hesitated but didn't want to disappoint Nia, who bounced with excitement around the living room. Daddy said ice cream. Daddy said ice cream, she chanted. Asher knocked on the door just as she finished the song. Stella opened it, her heart involuntarily fluttering, not just from the kiss they shared, but from how he stood there, holding a tiny cotton candy-colored helmet for Nia. For ice cream or for safety? Stella teased lightly. Asher smirked. Both. They walked to the local ice cream parlor, a cozy little shop with bright, striped awnings and warm lighting spilling through the windows. Families filled the place, weekend energy still lingering into the week. As soon as they stepped inside, the air shifted. People stared, whispered. Stella stiffened. Asher noticed instantly. He leaned down slightly, whispering, You okay? She forced a smile. I'm fine. But she wasn't. They stood in line, Nia bouncing between them, tugging both their hands happily. Two women near the counter watched them intensely. That's the girl from Sunday, one whispered. And that's the father? He looks rich. He looks trouble. Stella swallowed, shifting closer to Nia. Asher's jaw tightened. Then one of the women stepped closer, voice sweet but cutting. Well, Stella, Seems like your life changed overnight. Stella forced politeness. Yes, ma'am. So, you two are together now? She asked, eyes flicking over Asher disapprovingly. Before Stella could answer, Asher stepped forward, standing taller, voice deeper. That's not your concern, he said calmly. What is your concern is showing some respect. The woman blinked, flustered. Excuse me? You heard me, Asher continued, tone firm but controlled. Stella is raising a wonderful child. She doesn't owe you, or anyone else, explanations about her family. A beat, silence rippled across the room. Asher took Stella's hand gently, not possessively, but protectively, and said, Let's order. Stella felt heat rise in her cheeks, not embarrassment. Something else, something warm, something safe, something she wasn't used to feeling from anyone but herself. They reached the counter. Nia tugged Asher's sleeve. Daddy, I want cotton candy. You got it. He smiled. 3 scoops. Maximum sugar. Mommy has to deal with you after. Stella playfully elbowed him. Oh no, we are dealing with her together. He raised an eyebrow. We? She froze for a second, then nodded shyly. Yes. We. His smile softened, a slow, warm expression that made her feel like the only woman in the room. On the way back, Stella sat quietly in the passenger seat, the moonlight painting soft angles on her face. Nia slept in the back seat, holding her bunny with a fist full of melted sprinkles on the ear. You were quiet after the ice cream place, Asher said gently. Stella stared ahead. I'm not used to being talked about. You handled it well. It didn't feel like it. Asher turned onto her street, slowing the car. His voice softened, velvet low. Stella, people talk when they don't understand something. When something good happens in someone else's life, they look for cracks instead of celebrating. She glanced at him. You and Nia deserve respect, he said with quiet conviction. And if anyone tries to make you feel small again. He paused, eyes meeting hers. They'll answer to me. A heat bloomed in her chest. Asher, you don't have to protect me. I know, he said softly. But I want to. The words hit deeper than either expected. Asher carried Nia inside and placed her gently into bed. Stella watched from the hallway, heart melting at how carefully he brushed her hair back, and whispered goodnight. When he stepped into the living room, Stella stood by the door, unsure whether to thank him or confess how deeply she felt the shift inside her. Instead, she simply said, Today was a lot. He nodded. I know, but you handled it, she added, her voice warm. I didn't expect you to defend us like that. He stepped closer, careful, always giving her room. You're my family now, he said softly. Both of you. Her breath caught. Family. He didn't say it lightly. He didn't throw it out casually. He claimed it, gently, confidently, intentionally. Asher, she whispered, emotion trembling in her voice. He reached toward her but didn't touch her yet. Stella, I know this is new, and complicated, and maybe scary, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes softened. I believe you. The air thickened again, the kind of stillness that feels like a turning point. But instead of kissing her, he stepped back slightly, respecting her boundaries. Good night, he whispered. Stella exhaled slowly. Good night. And when he left, closing the door gently behind him, Stella leaned against it, feeling protected, seen, wanted, and beginning to fall in love. The next few days unfolded in a rhythm Stella hadn't known she craved. Steady, warm, and unexpectedly comforting. Asher became a quiet but constant presence in their lives. He stopped by each afternoon to help Nia practice on her bike. He brought groceries without being asked. He learned the exact way Nia liked her apples sliced, and the way Stella preferred her tea, light honey, no lemon. He didn't intrude. He didn't push. He simply existed near them, with a gentleness she hadn't expected from a man who commanded boardrooms and owned a skyline view. Each evening, after Nia fell asleep, Stella found herself replaying small moments, the way Asher smiled when Nia hugged him, the way his hand brushed hers accidentally at the grocery store, the way he defended her at the ice cream shop. And of course, that kiss. Soft, warm, intentional. A kiss that carried both apology and promise. Stella tried not to read too much into it, but her heart had already begun stitching new hopes into its walls. Now, it was Friday evening. The week had stretched long, and Nia had fallen asleep early on the couch, her bunny tucked beneath her chin. Stella draped a blanket over her and turned off the television. A knock came at the door, gentle, familiar. Her heart fluttered. She opened it. Asher stood there holding 2 containers of takeout. "I didn't want you cooking tonight," he said softly. "Long week?" "Very long," she admitted with a tired smile. He lifted the bags. "Good, because I brought dinner." She stepped aside. "Come in." The house was dimly lit except for a warm lamp near the sofa. Nia slept peacefully, leaving the adults in a pocket of soft quiet. Stella set the takeout on the table, trying to ignore the way her pulse raced when Asher moved close enough that she could feel his presence. He pulled out her chair. "Sit. You've been on your feet all day." She raised a brow. "And how would you know that?" He smiled gently. "Because the first no you, that shouldn't have shaken her the way it did." They sat, eating slowly, comfortably. Asher talked about a small project at work he was trying to delegate more responsibly. Stella talked about Nia's fascination with the moon lately. "I bought her a small glow-in-the-dark moon projector," Asher said softly. "I want her to feel like she can reach for anything." Stella paused, her fork mid-air. He wasn't just buying toys. He was thinking of the kind of future he wanted her daughter, their daughter, to imagine. "Asher," she said, voice gentle, "you're doing really well with her." He looked down, almost shyly. "I hope so. I'm learning." "You are," she whispered. "I see it every day." He lifted his eyes to hers, and something passed between them, soft, warm, electric. After dinner, Stella washed the bowls, while Asher gently moved Nia to her bed. When he returned to the kitchen, Stella was drying her hands. They faced each other, alone, the soft glow of the lamp washing the room in warm amber. The energy shifted immediately. Asher stepped closer, slow, careful, respectful. "Stella," he murmured, his voice low. Her heartbeat quickened. "Yes?" He exhaled softly, as though steadying himself. "I've been trying to take things slow, and I still will. But I need to be honest with you." She swallowed lightly. "Okay." He cupped her cheek gently, his thumb brushing her skin with a tenderness that made her breath tremble. "I'm falling for you," he whispered. Her chest tightened, emotions swirling. "Asher." He shook his head softly. "You don't have to say anything back. I don't expect you to. I just needed you to know." She stepped closer without meaning to, her voice barely above a breath. "Why me?" His expression softened in a way she didn't expect. "Because you don't care that I'm rich," he said quietly. "You don't treat me like a position. You treat me like a person, and—" He paused. "And you gave me a daughter without ever asking for a single thing in return." Her eyes stung unexpectedly. "Asher, I didn't even know how to find you." "I know," he whispered, "and I'm grateful. Because even without me, you raised her beautifully." Her lips parted, emotion thick in her voice. "I did my best." "And your best," he said, brushing a curl behind her ear, "was extraordinary." She inhaled shakily. Something inside her softened completely. "Asher," she whispered. He lowered his forehead to hers again, just like the night of their kiss. "Can I kiss you?" he murmured. Her response was quiet, trembling, certain, yes. He kissed her again, slow, warm, and deeper than the first time. More intentional, more claiming, though still gentle. His hand slid to her waist while her fingers curled into the fabric of his hoodie. Their breaths mingled, hearts aligned, emotions rising. When they finally parted, Stella could hardly speak. He brushed her cheek with his thumb. "I don't want to rush you, but I want you to know, I'm here, really here." She nodded, resting her forehead against his chest as his arms wrapped around her. It felt safe. It felt right. It felt like the beginning of something big. Later, they stepped onto the porch to say goodnight. The night air was cool but comfortable. The street was silent, except for distant crickets. Asher stood close, hands gently holding her waist. "I want to do this right," he said softly. "Not just for us, for her, for Nia," Stella repeated. He nodded. "I want to build something stable, something real, something she can depend on." Stella looked up at him, heart swelling. And what about me? His expression deepened with emotion. You, he murmured, are the foundation. Her breath caught. He wasn't playing. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't passing through. He was committing. Slowly, he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. Stella, he whispered, I don't know when or how yet, but I know this for certain. He looked into her eyes, steady and sincere. One day, I'm going to ask you to share your life with me, for real, and I'll only ask when you're ready to say yes. Her heart flipped, tears threatening to fall. Asher. He inhaled deeply, thumb brushing over her hand. I'm not asking today, he said softly, but I'm telling you this now, because you deserve to know where my heart is headed. Stella felt her chest tighten with warmth and fear and hope all tangled together. She whispered, You mean that? I do, he said simply. Her voice cracked. I'm scared. I know, he replied gently, but I'll be patient. I'll earn every step. He kissed her one more time, soft, slow, lingering. A kiss that promised a future. A kiss that planted a seed neither of them would dare uproot again. A full year had passed, but to Stella, it felt like time had moved both slowly and impossibly fast. Like life had finally found its rhythm after years of survival. Seasons had come and gone. Winter snow, spring blossoms, summer heat, fall leaves drifting across Greenwood sidewalks. Through them all, there was one constant she'd never expected. Asher. Not the billionaire. Not the CEO. Not the man from New Orleans she once believed she'd never see again. But the man who walked Nia to school every morning. The man who stayed for dinner most nights. The man who learned to fix squeaky cabinets in her kitchen. The man who showed up for every moment, big or small. And the man Stella had slowly, quietly fallen in love with. Through the months, changes had woven themselves into their lives naturally. Nia's training wheels had come off. Asher had learned the names of everyone in Stella's church. Stella had gotten a better job at a community center, encouraged by Asher, who told her, You deserve more than survival. You deserve passion. Their worlds had blended without force, like two rivers meeting and finding a single calm path forward. And now, it was December again. A new winter, a new beginning. Asher sat in his penthouse, staring at a small velvet box on the marble counter. His thumb brushed the soft fabric over and over as if he were memorizing it by touch alone. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a stone he chose not for its size but for its symbolism. A stone that caught the light the same way Stella's eyes did when she laughed. A stone meant for a woman who never chased wealth, but whose heart deserved the world. He inhaled deeply, nerves tighter than any board meeting he'd ever led. He whispered to himself, I hope I'm worthy of her. Asher wasn't just part of their lives now. He was woven into them. The evidence was everywhere. At Stella's home, a drawer in her hallway now held his gloves and scarf. His coffee mug sat beside hers on the kitchen counter. Nia's drawings of the three of them, stick figures with bright smiles, decorated the refrigerator. And at Asher's penthouse, an entire room had become Nia's. Pink walls, a small bookshelf, a dollhouse nearly as tall as she was, and a framed picture of the three of them that Stella took last fall at the pumpkin patch. He kept that picture beside his bed. Every night before sleeping, he looked at it and whispered, Thank you, as if grateful for a miracle he didn't deserve. This year had refined him, softened him, grounded him. He'd learned how to braid Nia's hair, crookedly, but she loved it. He'd learned that Stella hummed when she cooked. He'd learned that home-cooked meals beat any five-star restaurant. He'd learned that laughter at the dinner table meant more than any business empire. And Stella? She'd learned something too, that she didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. That vulnerability could be safe. That love could return after years of being buried. Asher paced the penthouse, rehearsing words he kept failing to arrange properly. Stella, I want to. No, too formal. Stella, you and Nia, you're my. No, too emotional, too fast. He rubbed his forehead. Why was it easier to negotiate billion-dollar contracts than ask one woman to marry him? Because this wasn't business. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't power. This was heart. This was family. This was his second chance at something he didn't even realize he needed until he found Stella again. He took a deep breath. He needed a plan. Something meaningful. Something that reminded her of everything they'd built. Then he smiled. The perfect idea came to him. The fireplace. They'd spent dozens of nights there this year. Stella curled on his sofa, Nia asleep beside them. Soft music playing in the background. The fireplace had become their quiet place, their safe place, the physical center of their new life together. He knew exactly what he would do. He closed the velvet box and whispered, "Soon." Meanwhile, Stella stood in her kitchen stirring a pot of soup, watching Nia color at the table. Her heart felt full in ways she didn't know it even needed to be filled. She glanced at the small Christmas tree they'd decorated together. Nia had insisted on placing the star, and Asher had lifted her onto his shoulders to help. The photo Stella took of them, Nia squealing, Asher smiling wide, was now her phone's wallpaper. She had never imagined her quiet, humble life blending with his wealthy corporate world. But somehow, it worked. Her phone buzzed. A message from Asher. "Can I stop by tonight?" Her heart fluttered. She typed back, "Yes, we'll be here." She bit her lip, nervous and excited. There was something different in his tone lately, more intentional, more certain, more permanent. Stella wasn't naive. She felt it too. Commitment, love, future. But she didn't dare hope too boldly, not after the years she spent protecting her heart like fragile glass. That night, snowflakes drifted from the sky like soft white feathers. Stella lit the fireplace, wanting warmth before Asher arrived. The door knocked gently, just like always. She opened it, and the sight of him tugged at her chest. He stood there in a dark coat dusted with snow, hands in pockets, eyes full of something deep. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," she whispered, stepping aside. Nia ran up, squealing. "Daddy." He scooped her up, spinning her lightly. "Hey, sweetheart." Stella watched them, emotions swelling. After Nia ran back to her toys, Asher walked towards Stella slowly. "Can we talk?" he whispered. Her pulse quickened. "Yes." He took her hand, a warm, steady hold, and guided her gently toward the fireplace. The flames flickered, casting a golden glow across the room. He stood in front of her, breath unsteady. "Stella, this year with you has changed me." Her heart thudded. "I've grown. I've healed. I've learned what real love looks like. Not grand gestures, not perfect timing, but showing up every day. And you," he swallowed, "you showed me that. You and Nia." Stella felt tears prick her eyes. He continued softly, "I know we've taken this slow. I know I promised patience, but I need you to know something." She inhaled, shakily. His eyes locked on hers. "I am preparing," he whispered, "for the next step." Her breath caught. Warm emotions surged in her chest. He lifted her hand to his lips, slow, reverent. "I want a lifetime with you. I want to build our family with intention, with commitment, with love." A soft gasp escaped her. He didn't kneel yet. He didn't pull out the ring. He didn't rush. He planted the seed, beautifully, gently. Stella squeezed his hand, tears brimming. "Asher," she breathed. "I'm not afraid anymore." His expression softened completely. "That's all I needed to hear." They leaned into each other slowly, sharing a deep, lingering kiss, one filled not with uncertainty, but with certainty. A kiss that promised a future. A kiss that sealed a year's worth of healing. A kiss that carried the truth they both knew now. They were destined, not by chance, not by coincidence, but by fate. It had been nearly a week since Asher hinted at taking the next step. Stella still replayed the moment by the fireplace every night before falling asleep, a moment wrapped in warmth, promise, and truth. She had felt his sincerity all the way through her bones. Each day since then she walked around with a quiet glow she couldn't quite hide. Now it was Saturday afternoon, and a new milestone waited for them, their first official blended-to-family dinner. Both of Asher's parents were visiting Atlanta for the holidays, and Stella, his mother, who lived a few hours away, had agreed to come as well. Stella had been nervous at first, unsure how the worlds would collide, but Asher insisted gently, "They're going to love you. Let them." And somehow, she trusted that. Asher's penthouse smelled like rosemary chicken and warm bread. Music played softly through the surround speakers, A smooth jazz playlist Nia insisted they pick together. She danced around the living room in a sparkly dress, practicing her gentle curtsy for the grandparents she had only seen in pictures. "Daddy, do I bow like this?" she asked, bending awkwardly. Asher laughed and knelt beside her. "You can just smile, sweetheart. They're going to fall in love with you," Stella added, smoothing Nia's dress. "The smile is perfect." She stood, adjusting her own outfit, a simple but elegant navy blue dress Asher had complimented earlier. "You look beautiful," he'd whispered, brushing a kiss against her temple when he arrived. Stella still felt that warmth now. Then another feeling, nerves, settled in her stomach. "What if this is too much?" she asked quietly while settling plates on the long dining table. Asher walked behind her, placing his hands on her waist gently. "Stella, breathe. This dinner isn't a test, it's a celebration." "Celebration of what?" she whispered. He turned her to face him, eyes warm. "Of what we've become." Her breath caught. "And what we're becoming next," he added softly. Before she could respond, the intercom buzzed. "They're here," Asher said. Nia jumped excitedly. "Grandma and Grandpa?" Asher smiled at how easily Nia had adopted the titles. He pressed the button. "Send them up." Stella's heart pounded. The arrival of Asher's parents. The elevator dinged, and moments later the door opened. Asher's parents stepped inside, his father in a heavy winter coat, his mother with warm eyes and a gentle smile. "Asher," his mother exclaimed, opening her arms. He hugged her tightly. "Hi, Mom." His father clapped him on the back. "Good to see you, son." Then their eyes shifted to Stella and Nia. Stella's breath held. Nia whispered, "Mommy, I'm nervous." Stella squeezed her hand. "Me too. But it's okay." Asher's mother stepped forward slowly, her face softening. "You must be Stella." "Yes, ma'am," Stella said shyly. But the woman shook her head gently. "Not ma'am. Just call me Evelyn." Her voice was warm, not judgmental, not critical. Then Evelyn knelt, meeting Nia eye level. "And you must be Nia." Nia smiled nervously. "Yes, I'm Nia." Evelyn opened her arms. "Can the first hug you?" Nia leaned forward and hugged her. A long, warm hug. A grandmother's hug. When they parted, Asher's father stepped forward. "I'm Michael," he said, shaking Stella's hand gently. "We've heard so much about you." Stella's cheeks flushed. "Good things, I hope." "All good," he assured her kindly. Asher caught Stella's eye, giving her a soft smile that said, "See? I told you they'd love you." But the night wasn't over. Stella's mother was on her way too. Stella's mother arrives. Another knock came 15 minutes later. Stella stiffened. "My turn," she whispered. Asher shot her an encouraging look and opened the door. Stella's mother, Linda, stepped inside wearing a long coat and carrying a plate of peach cobbler. Her eyes scanned the elegant penthouse, then the faces inside. She lingered on Asher for a moment, then Stella, then Nia. "Mom," Stella said carefully, "this is Asher, and these are his parents, Evelyn and Michael." Linda approached Asher first. "You must be the man my daughter hasn't stopped trying not to talk about." Stella groaned softly. "Mom," but Asher chuckled kindly. "I'll take that as a compliment." Linda looked him over, assessing, measuring, but her tone softened. "Well, you look like you care about them." "I do," Asher said simply. "And you're staying this time?" "Yes," he said. No hesitation at all. Linda nodded slowly, approval forming. Evelyn walked over. "Please, join us. We're so glad to meet you." Michael extended his hand. "We've been looking forward to this." Linda relaxed visibly. "Well then, let's eat." And just like that, two families took their places at the same table for the first time. The meal unfolded with surprising warmth. Nia talked non-stop about school, her bike, her bunny, and the time Asher dropped flour all over himself trying to bake cookies. Stella covered her face. "Nia." But Evelyn laughed. "Oh heavens, I wish I had seen that." Asher threw Stella a playful glare. "I told you not to tell anyone." "You told me," she teased. "Not our daughter." Michael leaned back, smiling at the title, "Our Daughter." Linda watched the dynamic carefully. Stella's laughter, Asher's softened expressions. Nia's comfort, and finally said, loud enough to cut the conversation, "You know, I think this might be the happiest I've seen my daughter." Stella froze, emotions rising. Linda continued gently, "And I think it has everything to do with the man sitting next to her." Asher looked at Stella with a quiet tenderness. Evelyn added, "We think the same about our son." And suddenly, Stella felt the weight of the moment. Acceptance, unity, blessing. Their families weren't just tolerating this relationship, they were encouraging it. Family, drop a comment telling us what lesson you're taking from Stella, Nia, and Asher's journey. Your engagement helps this channel grow. As dessert was being served, the two mothers found themselves standing together by the window. Linda spoke first. "Your son, he's not what I expected." Evelyn smiled. "He wasn't always this grounded, but Stella and Nia changed him." Linda nodded slowly. She needed someone who wouldn't run away. Someone steady, and he needed a reason to slow down, Evelyn replied softly. "Your daughter gave him that." They exchanged a knowing smile, two mothers recognizing something bigger at work. Later, Asher guided Stella to the balcony, overlooking the city lights. "Your mother likes me," he teased. "She's pretending she wasn't nervous," Stella replied. "And you?" he asked, brushing a curl behind her ear. "Were you nervous?" She laughed, gently. Terrified, he leaned closer. "But you're not anymore, right?" She shook her head slowly. "Not anymore." He took her hands. "Tonight was important. I wanted our families to see what we see." "And what's that?" she whispered. "That we're already a family," he said softly. Her eyes welled. He squeezed her hands, steady and warm. "And I wanted them to be part of what happens next." Her heart thudded. "What's happening next, Asher?" she asked gently. He smiled a slow, tender smile. "You'll see soon." She exhaled shakily, emotion flooding her. Then she whispered, "I'm ready." His breath caught, just slightly. "Good," he murmured. "Because I've been waiting to hear that." As families hugged goodbye, Evelyn kissed Stella's cheek. "Welcome to the family, dear." Michael lifted Nia into his arms and said, "We'll spoil you properly next time." Linda hugged Asher, surprising Stella. "Take care of them," she whispered. "I will," he promised quietly. After everyone left, Stella leaned into Asher's chest, overwhelmed by the peace that settled over her. "Thank you," she whispered. "For tonight?" "No," he murmured into her hair, arms tightening around her. "Thank you." "For what?" she asked softly. "For letting me belong." Her heart melted. Because he did. And she did. And Nia did. They belonged to each other, and fate had led them here. The penthouse was quiet that night, quieter than usual, softer somehow. Snow fell gently outside the large windows, drifting in slow patterns like feathers dancing in the cold air. The city lights shimmered beneath the winter sky, and everything felt peacefully still. Asher had dropped Stella and Nia off after dinner, but he'd sent one final message before driving away. "I'll stop by later. I have something I want to tell you." Stella's heart hadn't stopped fluttering since. Now she sat on the living room couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, while the fire crackled gently in front of her. The warmth touched her skin and calmed her nerves, but her heart still raced with anticipation. Nia had already fallen asleep in her room, exhausted from all the attention and excitement of meeting both sides of her family. Stella watched the small flicker of firelight dance across the floor, the quiet glow reflecting the changes of the last year. So much had shifted, so much had healed, so much had blossomed. A knock sounded at the door, soft, familiar. Stella inhaled slowly. She stood, smoothing her dress, grounding herself before opening the door. Asher stood there wearing a dark winter coat, tiny flakes of snow resting on his shoulders. His expression was gentle, tender in a way that stole her breath. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," she whispered back, stepping aside. He walked in and glanced toward the fireplace. "You lit it." "I like it warm," she said, trying to steady her voice. "I like it warm too," he replied, his tone holding a deeper meaning. Asher shrugged off his coat and joined her near the fire. The light made his features softer, highlighting the sincerity in his eyes. He took a slow breath. "Tonight went better than I hoped," he began. "It did," she agreed. He looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Your mother hugged me before she left. Stella blinked. She did? Twice, he said with a smile. She told me I was good for you. Stella laughed lightly. If my mother said that, she meant it. He stepped closer, just a little, his voice lowering. Do you agree with her? She held his gaze. Yes. Something shifted in his expression, gratitude mixed with emotion he didn't quite know how to express. He reached out and gently took her hand. His fingers curled around hers with warmth that matched the fire behind them. Stella, I'm not a perfect man, he said quietly. I made mistakes years ago. I didn't know. I wasn't ready. But this year with you and Nia has taught me more about life and love than anything I ever learned in a boardroom. Her breath trembled. You two gave me a home, he continued. Not a place. A feeling. She squeezed his hand, tears welling. And I want to step into the next chapter of that home. Her heartbeat drummed in her ears. Asher, she whispered. He gently guided her to sit on the rug near the fireplace. The flames crackled softly, filling the room with warmth and orange glow. He sat beside her, facing her fully. Before I ask anything, he said softly, I want to tell you what I learned this year. She nodded, listening intently. I learned that responsibility isn't a burden, it's a privilege. Being Nia's father isn't something I have to do. It's something I get to do. Stella's eyes shimmered. I learned that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up, being present, holding on to what matters. His voice grew deeper, steadier. And I learned that family, real family, isn't built overnight. It's built with patience, forgiveness, laughter, and choosing each other again and again. A tear slipped down Stella's cheek. He brushed it gently away. And Stella, he whispered, I want to choose you, every day, for the rest of my life. Her breath caught. He reached toward his coat pocket, slowly, intentionally, and pulled out a small velvet box. Stella gasped softly, covering her mouth. Asher didn't open it yet. He held it between his fingers, but his eyes never left hers. You're the strongest woman I've ever known, he said. You raised our daughter alone. You built her world with love and sacrifice. You carried burdens no one saw, and you still kept your heart soft. The box trembled slightly in his hand. I want to honor you. I want to honor what you built. I want to be part of it. He took a slow breath. But before I ask you this question, I want you to hear something important. Stella nodded, tears streaming silently. He leaned closer, his voice gentle and sincere. You don't owe me a yes. You don't owe me anything. You've given me more than you know, but I'm asking because I'm ready to give you everything. Then, finally, he opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. A ring meant not for display, but for meaning. Stella covered her mouth again, overwhelmed. Asher lowered his voice to a tender whisper. Stella, will you marry me? The room went silent, except for the soft crackle of the fire. Stella's breath shook. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Tears flowed freely now. Years of fear, years of strength, years of longing all releasing at once. She touched his face gently, her fingers trembling. Yes, she whispered. He blinked. Yes, yes, she repeated, voice breaking. Asher, yes. A breath of relief, deep, emotional, escaped him. He slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. Stella laughed and cried at the same time, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Their foreheads touched, their breaths mixed. Their future opened. Behind them, the fire glowed brighter, as if celebrating too. A small voice called out sleepily from the hallway. Mommy? Daddy? They turned to see Nia rubbing her eyes, holding her bunny. Stella wiped her tears quickly. Yes, baby? Nia shuffled toward them. Why are you crying? Asher lifted her gently onto his lap. These are happy tears. Why? Nia asked, blinking innocently. Stella showed her the ring. Daddy asked Mommy to marry him. Nia gasped loudly, eyes wide, mouth wide open. And I said yes, Stella added softly. Nia squealed in delight and threw her arms around both of them. Does that mean we're a family forever? Asher kissed her forehead. Forever. Nia hugged tighter. Good. I want forever. Stella and Asher exchanged a look, one filled with gratitude, love, and destiny. Their family had been formed by accident, reunited by fate, and sealed by choice. Life doesn't always give us perfect beginnings. Sometimes it gives us broken pieces, unanswered questions, and seasons of survival. But when love arrives with patience, when healing arrives through commitment, when a family forms through choice and responsibility, that is when the broken becomes whole. Stella learned that strength is not silence, but allowing herself to be loved again. Asher learned that true success is not measured in buildings, but in the hearts we choose to build a home with. And Nia taught them both that love, when pure and uncomplicated, heals everything in its path. Family isn't defined by the way it starts. It's defined by the way it grows. Daily, intentionally, tenderly. And this family? It was destined. Thank you for watching. If this story made you believe in second chances again, show your love by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps Mr. Michael's stories alive.